Supplementary.
No, the opposition has run out of questions. That concludes oral questions. I call on Government Order of the Day number 1.
Appropriation 2016-17 Confirmation and Validation Bill, committee stage continued.
I declare the House and Committee for further consideration of the Appropriation 2016-17 Confirmation and Validation Bill. Madam Chair.
Speaker. The House and Committee for further consideration of the Appropriation 2016-17 Confirmation and Validation Bill. The time remaining in this debate is 1 hour and 48 minutes. When we were last considering this bill, we were debating the question that the reports of committees relevant to the primary sector be noted. Kiritapu Allan moved that progress be reported, and the call is now available to her. Madam Chair.
Kiritapu Allan.
Madam Chair, it's an absolute delight to take a call with regards to the annual review on the primary sector, ma'am, and particularly being from the mighty East Coast, as we both are. I'm sure we've both got a lot to say on this particular matter. Madam Chair, but before I commence my remarks, I want to acknowledge first and foremost the many hard-working women and men throughout New Zealand that grind and toil away in a wide range of the primary industries within our regions. And Madam Chair, it's an interesting, right now there are so many women, men, families that are being impacted across a broad range of fronts with regards to insurmountable, it may seem for many folk, insurmountable biosecurity threats and risks to our core industries. And so, Madam Chair, I guess as I was reflecting on the remarks I wanted to make with regards to this annual review, my thoughts went to those that are enduring casual culls, those that are suffering from mycoplasma bovis throughout New Zealand right now. So first, Madam Chair, I did want to acknowledge them. And Madam Chair, I guess that really, for me, is at the heart of when we look back at the work of the previous government and we look at the way in which they have prioritised the primary industry. For me, it wasn't so much what they did, but actually it was what they didn't do that I wish to, I guess, focus my emphasis on. For example, Madam Chair, in the dairy industry, and we all know that the dairy industry, it's the largest economic contributor to our export market. It's absolutely critical to our region's growth and survival. However, when it comes to the previous government having to make critical decisions for our dairy industry, for our largest exporter, those decisions were consistently and repeatedly delayed. And there's no better example than the Dairy Industry Restructuring Amendment Act. Madam Chair, as you'll be well aware, in 2015, the Minister was required to undertake a statutory review. The outcomes of that from the Commerce Commission was that the DERA provisions, the competitive provisions within that, it all comes back exactly to the annual review, Madam Chair. There was a consequential and a series of decisions, a failure to bring in critical decisions across key components of our dairy industry. So, for example, I'm straying too far, aren't I? It's referenced in there. I'll pull it up. Look, yeah, for me, it was what the previous government didn't do, and it didn't introduce fundamental legislation to protect our dairy industry It had it up on the orders paper for a measurable amount of times. But this new government, under the leadership of Minister O'Connor, had to tackle straight off the bat fundamental legislation because the DERA provisions were about to expire in May 2018 of this year. So we had to introduce, under expediency, the dairy industry. And what was frustrating was listening to the opposition wax lyrical and, I guess, scaremonger our rural communities, saying that we were trying to introduce things that just absolutely weren't right because of their failure to act and bring in fundamental legislation. I want to turn to, well, that's actually almost my time, so I better not get too much into it. But another failure on the dairy front is the National Animal Identification Tracing Scheme.
To talk about the appropriations.
Yeah, the appropriations and the fact that those things weren't done. Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. The fact that there was insufficient funding provided to measures such as the National Animal Identification Tracing Scheme, which we have seen led to potentially led to the flow of Mycoplasma bovis throughout our country right now, which is a critical issue that this government is having to tackle. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Is anyone taking the call? I call the Honourable Nathan Guy.
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you very much for allowing me to take a call on